Laura Porter is the co-founder of ACE Interface. Laura develops and teaches community empowerment strategies, including the self-healing communities model, helping leaders throughout the nation dramatically improve population health. When I met Laura, I was instantly impressed by her knowledge and her experience in healing communities. But honestly, what I love most about Laura is her empathy, her kindness, and her compassion, and her respect for the people in the communities that she supports. Laura dives deep. She has spent the past year getting to know our community and our community stakeholders. She's been interviewing people who have a story to tell. She's been investing her time, her effort, and her energy into understanding the unique needs and opportunities that exist in our community to help us heal and to help us thrive. Please join me in welcoming Laura Porter.
Thanks, Danelle. It's a pleasure to be here. And when we're surfing really changing times, I think some of the things that we hold on to are ancient human traditions, rituals, story, our relationship with one another. Today we're going to hear a little bit from 3 local folks. And before that, I'm just going to give you sort of a scan of the horizon of what's happening across the country in this time where we don't all have access to each other personally, but we do have our experience with one another. And so let me show you what communities are doing with that right now. So what's happening? Here are some of the things I'm seeing across the country and communities. We're taking services to parents and to families. And one of the things that I'm impressed with is co-locating early intervention specialists in pediatric offices so that families who have children with developmental delays or other challenges have that support right there when they see their pediatrician. And that support can then follow that family and that child into the home or into childcare settings to make sure that the child gets all the kinds of catch-up services that will make a huge difference in their life. We're seeing whole new roles for essential workers. In one of the communities on the East Coast, police officers now have a completely new role. They are learning about how trauma and adversity can be transmitted. And so when they arrive at the home of someone where they're going to do an intervention, they're going to make an arrest, or at least have a conversation with the adults in that household, they deliver the message that my intervention, my interaction with you could create stress for your children. And so I want to make sure that we talk about that and that we have an opportunity to think together about how my interaction might be affecting your family and how we can reduce the stress for children. And when the parents aren't really in the mode where they can handle that conversation in that moment, because for most of us, having a police officer at our home is not the calmest moment in our life. What happens is the officer goes back a week later, knocks on the door, and reminds the parents, my interaction with you could have created stress for your children. She or he takes a gift to the family and says, I want to talk with you about how we can reduce stress for your children in their lives. Completely different role, and it helps parents understand what's happening in their midst as they're navigating the challenges in their lives. We're seeing communities find agreement on how we can co-manage a whole cadre of people who have a similar role in child and family life. For example, the promotores, the community health workers, the community health organizers, all of those amazing people who have that direct relationship. Where are they and what agencies are working with them, and how are we navigating the weaving of that strength across our community, thinking about training and management and recognition of all of those people with common roles. And along that line, I'm seeing communities really think closely about triage. How are we using the intervention, the high-end intervention kinds of services? Do we have some agreement about which families and which parents and which children and which elders we're referring to the most intensive kinds of help? and which we're referring to natural supports. Are we intentionally building out the natural community supports so that we can make suggestions to those individuals and families that really need a stronger social network, but don't need the intensive intervention services that are so valuable that we want to really preserve them for the folks that most will benefit from them. So that notion of triage across the system and looking at how we're using our referrals. We're really seeing a growing trend to be able to normalize our conversations about how we respond to stress, how we regulate ourselves, and really normalizing the idea that we all have a threshold of stress that can tip us over into crisis. And so, how are we building emergency plans? How are we noticing in our bellies that that stress is getting close to that tipping point? And can we have agreements among all of our friends and neighbors and those that support us about when I make that call to you, you'll be there for me when I say that stress is too much right now. Emergency plans sometimes have to do with music or rhythm or conversation or engaging in a ritual, right? They may have to do with taking a walk or a hike or enjoying nature or taking a bath among the trees, right? But all of us can have our own plan for how we're navigating those moments when our self regulation is off kilter and we need that calming. And last, I know you have amazing capacity for Family Cafe, for Parent Cafe in your community. And we're seeing more and more sort of late night family to family cafe style dialogue where parents are creating this network of support for one another at a time where they really could be engaged in conversation after the kids go to bed, but before the parents go to bed. So those are just a quick overview of what I'm seeing across the country. So many innovative ideas for how we can make our whole system more sensitive, better listeners, better feedback, and better understanding of what's happening in our lives. What's working? I think the thing that's working is this notion of rapid cycle innovation. We're learning, we're trying, we're learning, and we're getting back to each other on what we're learning and how it's working. It's the parents who have the most power for reducing adversity from one generation to the next. And the community is depending on skilled parents, just like businesses depend on skilled employees. And when we live through a time of tremendous change and it's kind of like managing a business with huge turnover, right? We have we have to invent ways to consistently learn from our parenting adults and be prepared to support them in ways that are meaningful to them at any given moment. So here are the strategies we're seeing emerging in different communities. We've got one place that I'm really watching closely that selected 100 families. 6 different agencies decided that they would do their business differently and collectively with this 100 families and intentionally learn from those families. How can we really be present with you in a way that makes the biggest difference in your lives? And they're using that feedback to feed back into the larger system that serves all families, and using the wisdom of those parenting adults to inform the entire system. We're seeing more and more really explicit instruction about self-regulation and that threshold of stress. And so people are using more self-regulation strategies like art and music and those activities that engage people socially while they're calming the body. And I know in your community, you've got fabulous facilitators of art and music, and you've got amazing leaders in culturally specific ways of supporting people in their lives. We're seeing more staff training and staff training that specifically helps the employees make an emotional connection, to intentionally listen, to bring what they're learning back into the services and systems they work with, and keep this higher purpose in mind in their everyday interactions. Not to be discouraged by the ups and downs, but recognizing that we're in this amazing journey at this time in history that will take us to a better way in the future. And lastly, we're seeing systems become more family friendly. And that has four main components, I think. One is to foster a sense of belonging. The second is to work in partnership with families, to co-create the future with families, to be family-centered, to meet, to learn and work with families and support in concert with families for the next step in their lives. And lastly, we're seeing this weaving together across different agencies and systems to create family support that eases the burden on parents and really recognizes and explicitly says, you know, we are relying on skilled parenting adults. What can we do to support your skill building, your capabilities, your power and strength in this amazing time when we're reducing adversity from one generation to the next? So history really in Butte County, at least, shows a lot of success. So when Danelle asked me to talk about what might be needed and what might be next, I really think what's important right now is probably celebration. In Butte County, we've seen over the last 20 years a consistent reduction in substantiated cases of child abuse and neglect. We see reported child abuse and neglect also coming down for emotional abuse, physical abuse, and sexual abuse. That circle there is the last big recession where we still saw Butte County folks having gains in this arena. When we look at absence or incapacity, general neglect, and severe neglect, we see a downward trend in caregiver absence and incapacity. And we see, you know, steady, not an increase in spite of all of the challenges that have happened in Butte County. We don't see an increase in severe neglect. Where we see an increase in reports is in general neglect. And when I see that, I think this is a community that's more sensitive to what's happening to families, more knowledgeable about why neglect matters. And I think positioned incredibly well to provide supports to families who may be struggling to give their full attention and their full love and giving hearts to their children. And when we can notice that, then we can build this networked support for those children across the community. So I think what's next in Butte County is a lot of celebration. This is an amazing success. And when I look at the factor out of all of the adverse childhood experiences that has the highest correlation with high ACE scores, that's family violence. And we see a downward trend. You have a little bit of an uptick in recent years, but the overall trend over the last 20 years is down. And that is extraordinary. Why? Because the adults in Butte County, the parenting adults, have extremely high adverse childhood experience scores. This whole picture tells me you're being successful at reducing ACEs for the next generation. It's likely that you are being successful, and that is the story of our time. When we think about the era we want to look back on and what we want to be proud of during the time when we were the adults, we want to be proud of passing less adversity to that next generation. Tremendous success, I think, given these indicators that I see in your data. And with that, I want to introduce three of the people that are generating some of those successes and ask each of them, what are you seeing and experiencing with the children and families you're serving that might help us get some insights into what is happening now? How's the stress that we're experiencing, not only from COVID, but from fires and evacuations and all sorts of challenges that you're facing? How is the stress interfering with efforts? And then what's one thing you're doing to support your staff? So let me introduce these three people and then I'll go in the order here: Bobby Jones, Norma Lacy, and Ji Yang. So Bobby Jones, you may know Bobby. He's the executive director of the African American Family and Cultural Center in Oroville. He was born and raised in Chicago, in the South Side of Chicago. So he knows adversity from his own childhood, undoubtedly. He came to Chico State as a football star and He's continued to do coaching, and he loves music. I want to introduce all three of these first, and then I'll turn to Bobby. So Norma Lacy, the program supervisor for the North Valley Catholic Social Services Promotorious Outreach and Disaster Case Management Program. She's a Mexico native. Norma is one of the most recent group of people who is going to be facilitating conversations about near science, which we'll talk about in a little while. She's a multicultural bilingual community advocate and has one of the biggest hearts of anyone that I've met. Welcome, Norma. And Ji Yang, who is the program manager for many programs at the Hmong Cultural Center of Butte County. He is leading initiatives like the Promotorious, like Raising the Child, and the youth program and immigration, refugee, mental health advocacy. He also is a graduate of Chico State, and he has his bachelor's degree in health science administration, so he comes from the health background. So G, thank you. G is also among the most recent group of people who will be teaching and facilitating in Butte County about near science. So let's turn to Bobby. What are you seeing and experiencing with children and families you're serving? And how's the stress we're experiencing interfering? How are you coping with that? And what's one thing you're doing for your staff?
Wow, Laura, thank you. And I just want to thank Janelle and everybody who put this together. After hearing Aaron, I don't know what else more to say, because if we just implement and take heed to the things that he said, we'll continue to make a difference. And I want to appreciate everybody on this call, because like you said, we're all heroes. But what I've seen in our community is, just like we all know, this is foreign territory for all of us. And so people are confused. People don't know what to do. They don't know what to believe. And so what we've been doing here at the center, trying to stay within the regulations of social distancing, is just trying to be there for the people that we serve. And through collaborations, just continuing to provide resources and meeting people where they're at, to the best of our abilities, and making sure that my staff is okay and meeting their needs as well. What's needed is for us to continue to collaborate, to be more compassionate, to understand that this is foreign territory, like for all of us. So we should all be wondering what could be the next step. And so it's just being compassionate for one another is what we've learned. And the collaborations, what is working is us being consistent in what we're doing and being able to adapt. So being able to continue our services via Zoom, and as social distancing is starting to be lifted, being able to start bringing folks back in. But once again, the things that Aaron said, providing that safe space is something that we were doing before COVID, and that was something that we're continuing to try to do during this pandemic, is just providing that safe space for people to know that you can come here. We're going to try our best to meet you where you're at. You're not going to be judged. And so those are the things that I feel is what's working with us. But then the biggest thing is the collaboration. So through funding and resources that's been coming to the center, such as the CARES Act, and I want to thank if there is anybody from DES, but this is just something that we're going to be doing for the next 2 months, is helping families with some resources. But at the end of the day, it's allowing us to get folks in who've never been here in the center and being able to have a conversation to see what could the center do to continue meeting these folks' needs. Because we're in a time right now today where the last thing should be on our mind is separation, to where we got to just be solution focused. You know, the pandemic is here. And until we could be able to maintain and deal with it, we just got to continue to support one another. And so I see a lot of people on this call that I collaborate with. I just want to personally say I appreciate you guys and thank you for just believing in the things that we're doing, because this is working here in the center, in the Southside Oroville. But now we're able to expand throughout Butte County through a CARES grant. So I'm just excited what's going on, staying positive. That's what we got to do, because there's some people who are just haven't been trained to understand that there's things that are going to happen in our life, and how do we overcome these things. So we're just equipping people tool belts with the things to be able to move forward. And I just appreciate all my collaborators out there. And thank you for allowing me this time to share.
Thank you so much. So inspiring. So Norma Lacy, let's see if I can find you on this.
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
There you are. Yep. Perfect.
Okay. Awesome. Again, thank you for this opportunity. I am filled up. I mean, you guys have amazing speakers, great music, and it's just great to see all of us. I said this before, and I'll continue to say, I'd rather be nowhere else but in Butte County in a time of a disaster, because there's so much heart, there's so much resilience, there's so much cooperation, and providers are coming together and saying, how can we help? How can we be there for the community? How can we fill that gap? And so for our program, the things that we are seeing is a lot of exhaustion, just ditto on what Bobby said, but we're seeing a lot of exhaustion. Parents are exhausted, with the campfire, COVID, now going the different platform of learning, education, with our families that are not, both language, the bilingual piece is very crucial. Parents were used to going to work, dropping their kids off at school, in the hope that they're learning, and now they had to move and be the provider, be the educator, and the language is a very big, I can't stress enough how that is a big stressor when the parent doesn't understand the curriculum. I know for myself that, went to school, speak both languages. It's a stress, to be able to help my kids. They're not doing math the way they were doing math when I was going to school. So, just to put ourselves in their shoes. So if you're not knowing the language, you don't have that communication, you don't understand what Zoom is, or, you're not media savvy. So those were like the biggest stresses that we were seeing and the biggest confusion. And, we see a lot of things. Somebody from the outside looking in and not understanding, they would say a lot of people are procrastinating, not filling in their applications when it comes to disaster, case management. But it's not that people are not following through, they're exhausted. And we're seeing a lot of aftermath. We're seeing a lot of health issues rising. We're coming into the 2-year anniversary, and people are still like in a zone. I hear a lot of stories where families are like, they're still stuck. They're still driving through up and down Paradise, still seeing the fires, and so this is dramatic. And so these are things that we're seeing on a daily basis that can be interfering with the services that we're trying to provide. Kiddos, one of the biggest fears that parents have expressed is, I'm scared that my kids are falling through the cracks, because they're plugging into the platform, but they're not really learning, they're not really understanding. And then this new shift of dropping them off for 2 hours, some parents have had to opt out of not taking their kids to school, because the parent that is at home or the grandparent that is at home can't drive to, and by the time they drive across town, it's time to pick them back up. And so they feel like there's more homework than learning. And so that is, I believe, one of the key stresses that we're seeing in the Promotores program. Kids are zoomed out, so because we had to go remotely and doing the groups online, we see a decrease and them connecting to the groups, but we've seen an increase of parents connecting to the groups and asking for the one-on-one support because we are calling and checking in on them. We have had to be very creative on how we're providing services. The best example that I give is like, if somebody's hungry, they don't care what you have to say. They want to be fed first. So, you know, like Bobby said, we need to meet their needs first, and then we can have the conversation. Then we can have the training. So one of the things that I thank our partners, North Valley Community Foundation and Advances Health for providing us some funds to be able to do essential baskets. So we're creatively doing an essential baskets on things that they would need because some of the families were dealing with income issues and providing a kit for the kids. Art is key, you know, giving them something to do to release that stress. That was instrumental. So those are the barriers that we're consistently seeing. One of the things that is working, again, I think that community partners coming together, having the food drives, I think that's letting the community, we're here, we care. You know, I know case managers within our program are being creative, dropping off creative kits for the families to give, you know, bring care packages to the family. Again, those are ways that we're saying we're here, we care, we're with you. One of the things, how are we supporting our staff? I believe through training. That is one thing that we're doing, providing a lot of trainings. I am privileged. I am so happy to work where I work. Our organization has been amazing on being mindful of the staff and their family needs, the flexibility when it comes to our work schedule. I'm shocked. I thank our director, our regional director, for always making sure, like checking your staff, make sure that you're working with them, make sure to let them know if they need anything, let us know. HR has been in constant contact with us, a voice of providing, you know, family leave and whatnot. And so I think that alone, you know, it's a big piece because if you have to juggle your kiddos, now being a teacher and work, it can be a lot because, you know, we also have to sustain our heroes that are the case managers, that are the promotoras, you know, being those essential workers, giving those direct help. And so, yeah, so that's, and again, so what can we continue to do? I think if I had a magic wand, I would provide private tutors, bilingual private tutors. You know, I think that there's a need for that. Kiddos that were struggling with reading and writing prior to COVID, you know, those are the kids that are in danger of not succeeding right now because they're kind of just suffering in silence. That's the best way that I can put, you know, just kind of going through the motions. And so, again, for us providers to continue to do the food drives, continue to do those essential packets, continue to do those essential baskets, that is alleviating some stress to the families. And that's us telling them, like, we're here and we care. We're not just coming here to dictate on how you should do things, but we're trying to partner up, link up with you and help you. And yeah, so thank you, everybody. That's what I have to say.
Thank you, Norma. Everybody wants your phrase to be on a billboard now. We're here, we're with you, and we care. T Yang, now we have to find you in these little squares. There you are.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. It's such an honor. So it's been pretty, you can say, hectic with the community that we serve at the moment. A lot of them are experiencing trauma from, you know, the dam and then the previous fires. A lot of our family members or community members, we have seen them move out of the county due to the traumas. Those that have not moved out are planning, and then those that can't afford to move out, you know, they've learned to be resilient and bounce right back onto their feet once, you know, these issues happened. They pretty much just kind of gather the things, go out and about, come back and just pick up right where they left off. We encourage them, and we also let them know that we are here for them, and we are also here with them. And I just want to give a big shout out to North Valley Community Foundation, Sierra Health Foundation, and First Five for giving us some fundings to create care packages, or what we called COVID-19 relief packages, where we were able to go out and purchase essential items, school supplies and activity kits, and just some like rice or simple meals that they can just prep. And we were able to distribute that amongst our community and have them just remember that they are not alone in this. We're all in this together. We will all get through the online school or virtual learning experiences. We're gonna get through finding language services to be more interpersonal instead of virtual or through the phone, because in our community they much rather have a translator or interpreter be in person than over the phone or via social media. So that's a crucial piece that has caused our community to delay seeking services or put it to aside, because the demand of us helping our community is so high right now that some days you will have 3-4 appointments stacked back to back, and that falls back onto our staff. Our staff are pretty burned out. We're pretty burned out with the amount of work that we're doing, and everything else that's going on. So we here at the Mono Culture Center, there's about 10 of us only. So we're pretty small, but we're trying to be flexible. We want to encourage our staff that self-care is super important in this time of hardship, and especially family. So we give them that leniency of having flexible hours, checking up on their parents, checking up their family, checking up the families that they serve. And then we have staff meeting 2 times a week, 2 times a month. I mean, so we do check-ins. We ask our staff, what challenges are you facing? What kind of hardships are you facing? What can we do to support? What can we do to help? Any suggestions? We try to be pretty close knit here at the Mono Culture Center so that everybody gets their fair share of support, and we also give everybody just that spotlight to own it for themselves, and just kind of share their experience, share how they're feeling. We feel that with the hardship that we're all going through, it's very crucial that we let everybody kind of own their space, their time, and their experience. So right now, active listening is an important piece for us and the community as a whole. Everybody's got their story, but everybody's got their hardship, and then bouncing back onto our families with having a full-time job and educating the children. And a lot of our families they have mentioned to us or expressed their concerns as that they have had to take a pay cut due to being home with their kids and educating their kids, but they feel that the kids are doing the work, but they're not understanding the material because they're missing that interpersonal relationship or interpersonal skill with the teachers and their peers, and they really hope that everything gets settled down, situated, so that they can get their kids back into school to mingle with their teachers, their peers, learn the curriculum, and get that proper education that they try so hard to immigrate to this country and provide for their children. And bouncing back onto the families moving out of the county, cost of living has increased, and that's something that we all see. And the families here, they because of the lack of job and whatnot like that, and the language that the lack of language that they have, it really impacts their financial support for their family. So and coming from the Hmong community or the Asian minority community, a simple, I guess you could say, the average amount of individuals living in a household is about 6 to 8 people. So, you know, you got one parent providing for that amount of household members is quite overwhelming. So, you know, just piggybacking off of Norma and what Bobby said, you know, we're here letting them know that we're going through the same experiences they are. We're also helping them and teaching them how to, you know, be resilient and, you know, not run away from the trauma, but, you know, finding alternate ways to cope with it and, you know, strive forward and, you know, move forward and learn different experiences that could, you know, better their family and themselves as an individual, so that it'll better prepare them for potential trauma or potential disasters that may be occurring in the future. And, you know, as we can see for the past couple of years, that's something that seems to be, you know, ongoing, you know, with the dam, the fires and whatnot like that. So yeah, that's pretty much what we're facing here at the Hmong Culture Center and, you know, our Hmong community as a whole.
Thank you so much, G.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for having us.
Your community is so extraordinary. I mean, Bobby opened by saying that folks can be confused and they can be overwhelmed, and Norma talked about exhausted, but all of you also talked about they have a dream for how it is to be living there, and they have a dream for their children, and they have a commitment to this healthy family feeling of the community as a whole. Is really inspiring.